Hi, my name is Max Lawrence, and I'm one of the co-founders of Space 1026. We currently have a show on display at 96 Gillespie Road in London, England. This is our introduction to Philadelphia and our collective. This is a traditional mummer's outfit. On New Year's Day, the unions of Philadelphia dress up and make costumes all year, and the unions compete in a thing called the Fancies, and they get drunk and dance, and they do something called the Mummer Dance, just something like this. And this is part of the tradition of Philadelphia. What we tried to do is we tried to bring in our collective's kind of general aesthetic and how we work together. We're not really we're not an art collective. We're more of a cooperative. We're people who share space together and exchange ideas, but we have no manifesto or any sort of ideas other than our space doesn't take corporate sponsorship. Individuals are more than welcome to if they like, and that we share our resources and our rent's cheap. So we start off in the room with one of the older artists from our space named Liz Rawelski. She's currently doing a photo series in conjunction with Kmart. These are lino cuts by Bill McWright. You have a crew of like lesbians that are like crazy affirmative about, you know, lesbian culture, and then you'll have a bunch of like alcoholic skateboarder dust heads, and they'll be in the same room together, and they'll have to get along. They don't have a choice. It allows things to come through like Claire Rojas and Andrew Jeffrey Wright, something like, I hope the camera doesn't add 10 pounds to me. You know, like, who hired this fat lardo for the photograph? This sucks. You know, it's funny and it's sad, and it's kind of like you laugh to keep from crying, kind of like elements to it. To the absurdity of like Mr. E.T., you know? And then we have like kind of a neo-psychedelic element to this space. Like, there, with, you know, Fort Thunder and Paper Rad, there's always been a tight collaboration with those guys with us. And kind of what spawned out of it is this, I guess, neo-psychedelia, but really, really hyper-rendered and pretty demented, some of it. And then you have somebody like Adam Wolotkavich, who's one of the original members of the space, who, for lack of any other description, I mean, he's a photographer, but his real art form is his house. And he bought a house in Philadelphia 8 years ago that had a pirate ship built in the basement and had manacles, and you'd look through them, there were these little scenes. And he's been redecorating his whole house by hand with an ocean theme. So in one of these photographs you can see here, he's been making these octopus chandeliers. So he'll go to the Jersey Shore, kill some octopus, bring it back, cast it, make it into, you know, his chandelier. But the whole house is like that. But also Adam is kind of like a collector. And so he collects like, you know, these Guar photographs. Like he collects like both objects and oddity people. And so he has this like really interesting family of people around him. Some of them pretty weird, but like great people. This work right here is from Ben Woodward, specifically this one and this one. And it pulls itself from kind of a traumatic period for all of us. Our friend Becky Westcott, who moved to Philadelphia with all of us in 97, 98, was run over by a drunk driver in Old Lyme. Her eyes ended up being donated to somebody who needed a cornea transplant, like a lens transplant for somebody who had cataracts. And just this idea of like, you know, somebody's passed away and the organs are being farmed out, and like kind of the sadness that occurs with it, and like this like, kind of like loss and tragedy. And so what used to be more of like a fun party element to what we were doing became more of it was a little more sobering. And then this over here is actually Jim Hauser's guitar. That was Becky's husband. This is Becky's husband still. Jim is definitely one of the best known Philadelphia artists from our group. A sense of humor has been a really pretty important thing. So such things as like, you know, and on the day Rainbow Bright became a woman, like the Technicolor Bloodstained, I mean, there's a certain kind of like perverse humor in it, but it also kind of brings you back to like a nostalgia of childhood, which like things are a little bit purer. So then we get to like people like Jason Muslin's work, who's heavily political, but at the same time like pretty funny. I mean, like this one's probably the most straightforward on, but the fastest route between obscurity and fame is a straight line of cocaine with the right person. That alone, like, works on a lot of levels. If you're dumb, you think it's funny because it's talking about cocaine. If you're smart, once again, you laugh to keep from crying, because the idea is it's true. If you're part of a cocaine network and you're part of people who can afford that lifestyle, that's where the money's at. So if you're inside that set, like, money makes money, you know, and it just seems like the more money you have, the more money it makes. Like Camel Cigarettes for a long time tried to get us to put advertising in. They're like, we'll pay you $2,000 a month if we put a Camel thing in the back of your space. And we're like, fuck you. Like, what are we, like, why? Just because we're smokers doesn't mean that we want to facilitate what you're doing. Like, you're doing this weird marketing thing with us, and it's not, there's no amount of money that you're going to be able to pay us that's worth it. Or Nike did the same thing. Nike's like, we want to put your book out. And that's when we started our own publishing company. And I was like, fuck that. Like, why are we going to, how much money are you going to give us? Well, you know, you get a book out. And I'm like, are we that vain? Like, is it really that vain of us to do that? Well, we'll just do it ourselves. You know what I mean? Like, you want a high school yearbook of us being like, hi, I'm a famous artist. Like, look, I'm famous. Like, you know, buy my sneaker art. Like, that's not what we need. Now, as an individual, that's fine. If you want to do a sneaker for Nike, I have no problem with that. But with the overall collective, we don't do that. And the same with Urban Outfitters, same with a lot of companies that they want to micro-brand with you and they want to get into your thing. And honestly, like, it's just not worth it. It's not, there's nothing at this point that would make me change, or anybody at the space change that, because we've gotten this far, you know? And then someday we'll get evicted and that'll be it. And then it'll be the end of the story. And then it'll start, somebody else will start something. You know what I mean? Like, it's not. But it is interesting. The future, though, I think holds the strip malls. That's where the future art collectives will be at. LA strip malls, man.